There is a saying that I have right now, and I'm sure that it could apply to many people. And that's just be wary and wary of the fake that's amongst you. And there are two people in this image. One is real and one is fake. I think many of you can pretty much pinpoint which is which. It doesn't take a rocket science to figure that out. But as you can see, this is a picture of Michael Jackson and Elton John. This was clearly back in the 70s. You can clearly tell. But the reason why I'm talking about this today, and it's more so focused on Elton John, is because he has this book out. I guess a new autobiography book. And in that book, he took some jabs at Michael Jackson, like many people tend to do about this man, even in death. And I think it's really all hate and jealousy at the end of the day. Oh, just have to insert this part in. In case y'all did not know, Michael Jackson actually surpassed 10 billion streams on Spotify. Not bad for a man who has been deceased since 2009 and died at a point when streaming music was not really a thing. Like at that time when he was back in '09, people were still going to the store buying physical albums. So it's unfortunate that he's, not alive to, put out new music, because I keep saying to myself, could you imagine if Michael Jackson was alive in this social media era? Could you imagine him with an Instagram or a Twitter account or, dare I say, a TikTok? I had asked and posed that question on Twitter a couple weeks ago, and people would have said he would have shut the internet down. I'm almost certain that he was. Same along with Prince and Whitney Houston. But back to this. Elton John is one of those individuals that just screams he drama queen. And that's probably giving him a compliment. And as talented as he is, he sure has a lot of time on his hands to throw these shots at people. But what makes it worse with this one is that he's constantly taking shots at a man who is deceased, who's not here to defend himself. That's one thing I don't like, is when people speak ill of someone who is deceased and they talk bad about them. Now, the reason why I said the fake from the real is because I'm sure that Elton John has said all these quote unquote nice things about Michael Jackson. He's taking pictures with him. And that's why I chose this picture. But then he's going to talk bad about him in his little book. He literally said that Michael Jackson was mentally ill and a disturbing person to be around. Well, isn't that the pot calling the kettle black? Because Elton John, many people could say that you're weird or that you're a disturbing person to be around. If you want to get a glimpse. Sorry for the interruption. I had a very important call that came through that I had to answer. But what I was saying was, if Elton John wants to talk about disturbing or mentally ill, all y'all got to do is possibly look at that movie Rocket Man and see that guy went through a lot of things. So for him to sit there and point the finger or throw stones in glass houses, he is a straight up hypocrite, and he has a lot, in the words of Harvey, he has a lot of nerve. A lot. But I'm going to go ahead and read this article that's coming from Yahoo that was posted August the 1st, 2022. After over a half a century of musical superstardom, Sir Elton John has got nothing to lose by being frank about his feelings. That's why it is no surprise that his new autobiography, Me, Elton John, is full of shocking revelations about his life and show business. Among those revelations are his comments about the late Michael Jackson, whom he calls, quote unquote, mentally ill. A disturbing person to be around. I know Michael since he was 13 or 14, John writes. He was just the most adorable kid you could imagine, but at some point in the intervening years, he started sequestering himself away from the world and away from reality the way Elvis Presley did. Okay, and the issue with that is that you gotta think Michael Jackson was a huge megastar. One thing that I'm gonna need people to do, if y'all have not done so already, and it's a very good series of videos, is go on YouTube, because I believe the whole thing is up there, and watch Michael Jackson's private home videos. That actually shows like the side of Michael Jackson a lot of people don't see. And it actually shows him in his element when he's not performing on stage, or even showing him backstage stuff when he's touring, or even when he's at Neverland and when he's just having fun, just being a regular person. But he also goes into detail about how when it comes to shopping and stuff like that, he'd have to have disguises on, or he'd have to have his people go out and do the shopping for him, because it was hard for him to do it because he would get mobbed by so many fans, and that can be overwhelming. It was even a part in there where they actually went in the store and they shut it down, where it was just him and some of the people he knew working in the store, and he just said that was just a refreshing thing for him, because he had never gone and shopped inside of a supermarket since he was a child with his mother. And you gotta think, that's many years in between. And he said, I just want to go in there and shop, and not be mobbed by anybody. So when he said sequestering himself from the world, we know Michael Jackson did it, and why he did it. He had no choice. If I was in his position, I would do the same thing. Him having to wear the mask and everything like that. A lot of people saw it as weird or as odd, but when you look at it in retrospect, that's what had to happen. Something tells me that Elton John wishes he probably had that level of fame where he could do the same thing. But like I said, Michael Jackson, Elton John, let's be real here of who the biggest star is. And let's not forget it. This is no dig at Elton John and his talents and, his accolades, but come on now. People, like, if you had to ask someone what concert you're going to, Elton John or Michael Jackson, do I need to give the response of who would say who, or who would win in that regard? It goes on to say that John also speculates about Jackson's tortured relationship with prescription drug, alluding to his addiction to painkillers. We know that because of the burn from the Pepsi commercial. He's saying stuff that many people already knew. Like, it's nothing new in what he's talking about. He says, alluding to his addiction to painkillers, God knows what was going on in his head. What an interesting choice of words. God knows what prescription drugs he was being pumped full of. But every time I saw him in his later years, I came away thinking that poor guy had totally lost his marbles. I don't mean that in the lighthearted way. He was genuinely mentally ill, a disturbing person to be around. Well, my thing is this, Elton John, if you felt Michael Jackson was so disturbed and so mentally ill, why didn't you reach out to him to see and say, hey, Mike, I'm worried about you. I'm worried about your health. I'm worried about your well-being. Here's a number for a therapist that I would like you to see. This is someone I know personally. I've seen them before when they helped me with my issues, but he didn't do any of that. What does he do? Trash him in his little book years after he's been dead. It doesn't matter now. But like I said, many people who watch Michael Jackson or know him personally knows that Michael Jackson has some issues. That's why I said nothing that he is saying is new. But it's interesting that it's coming from Elton John, considering he has some demons himself. I'm like this, unless you have a squeaky clean image, you can't say nothing about Michael Jackson. In January of this year, Jackson was the subject of Leaving Neverland, a condemnatory HBO mockumentary exploring his inappropriate relationship with children and accusing him of sexual abuse. Though John doesn't delve into the weeds, he does allude to Jackson's particular obsession with children, writing, for whatever reason, he couldn't seem to cope with adult company at all. Jackson isn't the only star illuminated in his memoir. John goes on to describe his special friendship with Princess Diana, as well as a dinner party at which Sylvester Stallone and Richard Gere almost came to blows as they competed for her affections. John also writes about his feud with Tina Turner, his relationship with Queen Elizabeth, and the time he criticized Bob Dylan's fashion sense. Combined with the success of Rocket Man, the biopic that took in $185 million at the box office, we'd say it's safe to call 2019 the year of Sir Elton. Now look at that. Now he apparently has beef with Tina Turner, another black star. Is there something you'd like to say, Elton John? But it's interesting that, they focus more so on the Michael Jackson part. And I think they only did that because they need to push the book for sales. And, controversy sells. So my thing is this. I have a feeling that Elton John's book would not sell unless they pushed it and pumped this out there. If people didn't know that he was talking about Michael Jackson in this book, it wouldn't sell. So what does he have to do? Or what do they have to do? Pump out that he said this and that about Michael Jackson and is going to influence people to go and buy it. That's all it is. But I'm glad they put this out here because now we know how Elton John feels. But I'm not surprised because if y'all remember last year with that incident with the baby, when they were quote unquote trying to cancel him because of what he said about the Academy, allegedly, black members of the Academy couldn't quote unquote cancel him. But what did Elton John do? A person who probably has never listened to one DaBaby song in his life used his platform and got up and said one thing, and all of a sudden, seemingly the world started to crumble around DaBaby. And then you had Funky Degenerate, well, y'all know him as Funky Deneva, but I call him Funky Degenerate, went on to that Fox Solis with what's her name and the other guy, and talked about how they were trying to, quote unquote, cancel DaBaby. And he said out of his mouth, if it wasn't for white men in the Academy, like Elton John saying what they said, DaBaby would not get canceled. He admitted it. Those weren't exactly his words verbatim, but that's what he said in context. He basically admitted that the black members of the Academy have no power. So if Elton John did not say anything, DaBaby would not have come under heavy scrutiny. I mean, he kind of did, but not as intense or escalated to the point until Elton John said something. Like I said, Elton John only said one thing, and all of a sudden they tried to cancel DaBaby overnight. And as you can see, that really didn't work because he's still performing. That didn't really stall his career because people was like, y'all making a big deal out of nothing. And the thing is, you got to question, was he lying? See, what they were really mad at was his delivery. They didn't come back and say that he was lying about what he said. They were just mad at how he said it, and probably because he was the one that said it. Now, if DaBaby was, say, an artist in the Academy and said those same exact things, would they have been upset? Whether it was the delivery or not. My guess is not. Upset anyway. But yeah, Elton John, he needs to sit his feather wearing, platform shoes wearing self down somewhere with this nonsense. Notice every time something happens with the Academy, they always find a way to sprinkle him somewhere in there, or he finds a way to fly himself into these situations that has nothing to do with him. But he gonna sit up here and talk bad about Michael Jackson and don't think people ain't gonna push back? Like I told you, Michael Jackson is a timeless artist. It is babies who are out here singing Michael Jackson songs. If you don't believe me, go and look it up on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok or any video platform sharing website, and you will see it. That these children were not even born when Michael Jackson was alive. And I'm talking about if they weren't born from the years of at least 07, then they wouldn't know. These are children that were born probably within the last 5 years, maybe 5 to 10 years, that are singing Michael Jackson songs. I saw a video where it was a baby. Their parents had them watching the Beat It video, I believe it was. And the baby was literally bopping his head and smiling the whole time. Let's see if a baby would give the same reaction to one Elton John song. But that's going to conclude my commentary on this situation. Y'all let me know what you think down in the comments. Like, comment, and share. Also, be sure if you are new to go ahead and hit that subscribe button, have that bell clicked, and your notifications set to all. And also be sure to have your notifications set to all on your mobile devices. And I will talk to you in the next one.